Hi, and welcome to Code Corner. This is a video series that we do at Mayfield Renewables where we talk about codes and standards that apply to the solar and solar plus storage industries. Today, specifically, I'm going to get into the 2023 National Electrical Code and Article 691. So 691 is specific for large-scale PV systems, so different from Article 690. We do have some size limitations or some size requirements to be considered large-scale and some other specific requirements. So we'll dive into that and kind of give an overview of what 691 is all about. So first off, let's talk about the scope. Article 691, 691.1 is the scope, and what you're looking at on the screen is the 2023 language. It does differ from the 2020 language. There was some stuff deleted. The stuff that got deleted actually got moved into the general requirements, and so we'll talk about those next. But the main point here is that the article is all about these large-scale PV systems that are not under the exclusive control of the utility. So we very often have referred to systems that are being behind the fence, and behind the fence kind of being this colloquial way of saying, that it's utility owned, utility operated. So these are systems that are not under the utility control, but they're still large scale. So we have plenty of those systems that are out there, and these are systems that are independently owned and operated. And if it's under utility control, they're going to follow their own specific codes, and so it becomes that it's outside the scope of National Electrical Code. So that's why we have that delineation that it's not under the control of the utility. So let's look at the special requirements. So there's a list of items here that we're going to go through that lists out these special requirements for Article 691. So the first one is that the equipment shall be maintained and operated by qualified persons. That shows up in multiple other code references that you're probably familiar with. It shows up in Article 690 and 706, for example. So nothing new there, but we're going to make sure that we are, this is not accessible to just anybody being able to walk up to it and having access to it. The access needs to be restricted per 110.31. So if you go back to 110.31, it talks about access to components and things like that, and how we need to provide some level of protection. So that's going to be in there as well. And then the field applied markings, just like in Article 690, we get a reference back to 110.21. So nothing really new or different there, but we're just going to repeat that and make sure that we're making sure that our labels are applied properly. The third one here is that the connection that we make is through a medium or high voltage switchgear, substation, switchyard, or similar methods. And so this is one of the big differentiators, or one of the big delineation points, I guess I could say, from a large scale system, what we're looking at in 691, versus something that is just a large PV system that's interconnecting at a huge facility, for example. So one of the distinctive properties of a large scale system is this connection at medium or high voltage values. So we're getting up above, typically that's going to be in the 13 kV range, or maybe even higher, depending on if you're connecting at the transmission level or the distribution level, those kinds of things. So this will be a major one that differentiates us. So if you're not doing a connection like this, if you're doing something, even at a lower voltage, not at medium or high voltage, then you would not be considered part of Article 691 because of this requirement. There is an allowance that you can have, low voltage power on site, but it's really there as to power the auxiliary equipment. So that's, it's not that we can't have low voltage on site. It's just that we're limited in terms of what the uses for that are. They cannot be installed on buildings, so we are seeing multi-megawatt PV systems being installed on buildings, but as soon as you put it on a building, even just by the sheer fact that it's on a building now, is not going to be, it's going to preclude you from Article 691. The monitoring, so you're going to have what we're deeming a central command center. So we have to have a way of monitoring the entire site. Typically at these types of systems, that's going to be some sort of SCADA system or something like that. So that will be included as part of the installation. And then finally, the station have an inverter generating capacity of at least 5,000 kilowatts or 5 megawatts. So generating capacity has a definition in Article 100. That's the AC output of the cumulative AC output of your inverters at 40 degrees C. So that needs to be at least 5 megawatts. So, our DC, if we're doing large DC to AC ratios, you may have a very, very large DC array going to this. So it might be upwards of, 8, 9 megawatts going into that, depending on what those DC to AC ratios are. So we have a 5,000 kilowatt or 5 megawatt limit in order to be considered a large scale system. All right. And then the other part I wanted to just kind of touch on or show you is 691.6, so engineered design. Not going to read all this code language for you, but this is exactly what 691.6 says. And really what we're going to have a requirement for is having a fully engineered system design stamped by an engineer, and provide this information, all of the documentation, reports, drawings, calculations, all of that being provided to the AHJ, especially upon their request. But what 691 does is, if you actually when you go and read 691, you'll see it's a relatively short article, and there's a lot of references back to this section, 691.6. If it's going to, voltage calculations are going to be included as this. We're going to have mitigation plans, things like that it's all coming back to this engineered design. So, not that you wouldn't do an engineered design for something of this scale magnitude. If you're doing a substation or medium voltage interconnection, you're talking about medium and high voltage now. And so, I think it should go without saying that you would have an engineered design, but this, makes it so that you have to have that and include that with your overall design. There are references in 691 back to 690, but this engineered design portion really gives, I wouldn't say leeway, but it gives you some ability to do things differently on these large scale systems through your engineered design, through your engineering best practices. So it definitely opens the door for some alternative methods and means to have your installation be done. All right, so that pretty much wraps up just the overview on 691. Obviously, if you're doing a large-scale system, you're going to need a lot more information, but that should at least give you an idea of, do I even apply? Does it apply to me? So, I would just like to point out that at Mayfield Renewables, we like to do a lot of education. We have some courses that we make available for folks on our website, and so we cover different topics. A lot of energy storage stuff there. We have some stuff on the National Electrical Code and things like UL 3741 as well. So if you're interested, I highly encourage you to take a look at our website. And then finally, if you have any questions on this topic specifically, or if there are future topics you'd like to see us cover in Code Corner, I would love to hear from you. So feel free to give a call or send an email to us and give us your ideas or send us your questions. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.